Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you about food, and specifically about how we need to move beyond this idea of sustainable agriculture. But first, I want you to take a brave little trip with me, a journey, if you will. I want all of you to close your eyes. Go ahead. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, breathe in. Now imagine paradise, whatever that means to you. When you hear the word paradise, what do you see? What's in your view? What kind of colors do you see? Are there any fragrances that come across your nose, or sounds that catch your ear, or the feeling on your skin? Most importantly, what does paradise taste like? Okay, you can open your eyes now. But hold on to that. Hold on to that. We're going to come back. So, paradise, it's interesting because when you look back in the origins of the word, paradise is all about food. In fact, paradise means an enclosure, or garden enclosure. Paradise, para is like pericarp, like the outer layer of a fruit. This boundary within which is a garden of food, of things that we can relate to in our deepest fundamental human selves. Somehow, we've been removed from our food. We've been removed from our food system. And few of us are actually a part of that beautiful human act of being right there as a connected part of our food system. So, when I started thinking about this, well, let me just say first that I'm a farmer now, but I was not always a farmer. Now I run Ridge to Reef Farm over in St. Croix, about 35 miles south of here. We grow vegetables, we have crops, we have fruit crops, we have pasture sheep and pigs. We have a lot going on at the farm because we're trying to do a diversity of food for our community in our local food system. And I believe that here in the islands, we have something special. The small scale is something that we can learn from to inform the world. When I first came here, though, I was on vacation. And I might have been looking for something like that first picture of the coconut and the beach. There was a coconut in there. But later on, I realized that my idea of paradise was far from what it should be. I was sailing on a boat from Trinidad back to St. Croix, taking it up after hurricane season. And that's when we got hungry and started to look for some granola bars downstairs. It was a beautiful day, 5 miles from the nearest land from Grenada, between Grenada and Caracas, over an underwater volcano, Kikimjini, when more water started coming in the boat than was on the outside of the boat, suddenly. And we started sinking. Minutes later, I found myself trapped in the back aft cabin of the boat, unable to open the door with all the weight of water behind it. And that was really the first time in my life where I felt a sense of peace, you might call it paradise, where nothing else mattered. I thought, wow, this is it, so this is how it goes. Anyway, I came back after that. We were saved from the water after the boat sank, after going the life raft. Brought back to St. Croix, and when I landed, I was ready for some soil. And I quickly became an island resident and was invited to work on a farm, which was now Ridge to Reef Farm. And I realized the reason why I was so into it is because it dawned on me that this idea of paradise was so wrong. And I remembered that before I began these sailing days, I used to hike a lot. I hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. In between my psychology degree and my master's in recreation ecology, I would get out there as much as I could. And I thought that I could get away to this natural paradise and leave it all behind. But the one tie that kept me back to civilization where I didn't get that true experience was with food. I had shelter, I had water, I had clothes, I had everything I needed, even companionship. But every 40 or 80 miles, I'd find myself hitchhiking back into town to restock at a gas station, a post office, or whatever I could find. So this problem had been lingering with me for a while, and after the shipwreck, it was the straw that broke my back. So I went into farming and realized that this whole idea was completely different. Because if we think about paradise in the classic sense of how we do it right now without the food, we might end up with friends like this. So landing there, taking on this awesome responsibility in a place where there's 99% of the food that's eaten, all imported from other places. It's an extremely challenging task to feed such an island. And the island is like a small-scale representation of the world in a way. There's about the same amount of land devoted to agriculture. There's a lot of social, cultural, and environmental issues. And the population is expanded beyond what the resources can provide from itself. Here we see a map of the world population and its projection through time. We're about right in the middle here, around 2015. And in a short amount of time, by 2050, we're supposed to have nearly doubled our population from a few years ago to 9 billion people on the planet. So I'm here to talk about not only food production in an agricultural sense, but to think about our entire world as a producer of food. These natural resources, the fisheries, the game, all the wildlife throughout the world, the wild plants, the nut trees, the agroforestry systems that are natural, those that when the colonists arrived to the U.S. that they found, which they thought was just wilderness, with fish bubbling out of the stream and wild plants and rows of corn. It was actually a carefully tended garden. So this is a picture of St. Croix in the sugarcane days, with all of its trees removed. This used to be a huge forest. Now today, we're slowly regenerating the area, and not just with 1 or 2 crops, but with many crops. Just below our land is precious coral reefs. And coral reefs provide 25% of the world's fisheries for food and shelter. So when we lose the reefs, we lose a quarter of the world's fish, which currently are feeding 2 billion people who depend on them heavily. And in coastal areas, it's the major part of the diet for 70% of the coastal area population in the world. These reefs are important in many ways to provide an ecosystem full of different characters, biodiversity of assemblages of different niche creatures that serve different roles to keep the reefs going. And even the close relationship that nature has with itself. Like, how many of you saw this fish in the middle of the picture? Maybe hiding from a pelican. But what we see today is that our reefs are in huge trouble. I was alarmed when I took a tropical ecology class at the university during my Ph.D. program, and the professor told us that if you want anybody to see the reefs, if you have children, take them now, because in 50 years, they're not going to be there. There's some extreme stresses going on. This is an example of coral bleaching, where the water temperatures are raising, and they have raised. In 2005 and 2010, the Virgin Islands suffered extreme coral bleaching, just like many areas of the world, and many of it did not come back. And how this happens is because of this beneficial relationship between the animals that live inside the coral that give it its color. And when the temperature gets so high, it reaches the threshold and they all leave, and the reefs become a forest. This is supposed to be a beautiful orange forest teeming with fish. And all too often we have this everywhere. But this is directly connected to our food system, to our overall food system. But what can we do as us inhabitants on land? Well, as a farmer and a consumer, we have a lot that we can do. But what I have a plan for you today, not just problems, but some solutions. And it's two parts. The first one is that we move to beneficial relationships and leave sustainability behind. Not that we shouldn't try to be sustainable. I think it's a beautiful thing. We have to get up to the point of at least sustainable, for sure. But think back to your idea of paradise. Why couldn't it be like that? Sustainability is really a zero-sum goal. To get to zero. To get to we're not doing bad. Don't we want to move toward let's do great? Let's return to this idea of paradise within some sort of area of a beautiful food production system. Can you imagine being able to drink out of the stream behind your house? Wouldn't that be a good goal? Besides not just putting pollution in it, but actually making it better? The diversity is needed in an ecosystem to protect all of the natural resources that we need for the future to feed the world. Here we have tree crops, we have bananas, we have moringa, an amazing superfood that's up and coming that you can grow in a forest system. We have the Virgin Islands' favorite Julie mangoes on top. Who here likes mangoes, by the way? Let me see a show of hands. Okay, good. We'll work on that. I'm going to make an order real quick. Bring some in. Tomatoes, we're selling to the farm-to-school program in the Virgin Islands. This guy, he always feels left out, so I had to put him in here. Lonely nightshades. And this is an example from Dominica in the Kalinago area of their watershed of the native people of the Caribbean, eating the crayfish and breadfruit and coconut water right from the land, a normal meal. We can do this. We can dare to imagine a paradise of food with us. So the second thing is looking at our food systems in an ecological way, using the boundary of that paradise as the watershed area in which we live. All of us, everybody here, lives inside a watershed. And so, to demonstrate, and you might need this, when you explain to our plan here, with a sheet of paper is like land, okay? The earth. And when all the forces push it together and crumple it up, like so, let me grab a dry one. Crumple it up like so. Then what we see is something like our mountainous, contorted landscape of the earth. And when it rains, the water flows down each one. If you can imagine, each little ridge here is a mountain ridge. This one made a little lake in my hand. Okay? This is how you imagine your watershed, where you live, the boundaries. Think about where you live in this. And develop a loyalty to your watershed. This is your area. This is your food shed, your food network. It's the only way that we're going to do this. We can't wait on all the government regulations to do it. Do you agree with me? This is the Mississippi watershed. All these little watersheds. There's around 2,200 watersheds in the country, and many combine to all lead to the Mississippi River. They carry a lot of runoff and nutrients from unsustainable agriculture, which has created giant dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. So we see how all these things add up, for better or for worse. This is a local food shed in Reno around Lake Tahoe. Interestingly, one of the only watersheds that doesn't go into an ocean or river or it actually evaporates, which means that all those accumulates stay there. But of course, the water later returns to the ocean as it rains. So the other advantage of our local food shed perspective is we can come together, we can teach and learn, and we can see the future in what we do today on the land. So I'd like for all of you to close your eyes again and take yourself to your home, wherever it is. And imagine your area. Where is your watershed boundaries? When it rains and it goes into the creek behind your house, and then the bigger creek and the river, where does it all go? And that's probably where we'll meet again. So, one more thing before we leave. I don't want to just talk about food. Of course, they put me right before the break for lunch. And so, we have some mangoes, I believe. You guys have the mangoes back here? All right, we have a little mid-morning snack for everybody. So please enjoy the fruits of our food shed from the Virgin Islands. This is how paradise tastes like. Thank you.